Being able to configure DNS, name lookup, and IP routing successfully on an ESXi host is critical for that host to function. Now, in a previous video, I showed you how to configure DNS using the Direct Console User Interface, or DCUI. I'd like to show you now what you can and cannot do in the vSphere client related to DNS and IP routing configuration. We're here in the vSphere web client, and right here on the host overview page, you can see our networking configuration, specifically the DNS servers that we configured over in the DCUI, and the default gateway, which is where this ESXi host is going to send any network traffic that isn't on this local subnet based on the subnet mask that we configured with the static IP address. Now, I haven't ever found a place here in the vSphere web client to go in and configure the DNS server for a host. If you go into, for example, the management network and then into the VM kernel interface, you can see the IP address here and the subnet mask. You can actually go in and edit the settings. You can edit the subnet mask, so you could change the IP address and subnet mask from here for routing purposes and to assign a new IP address. But I haven't found any DNS configuration settings in the web client whatsoever. I do know that VMware vCenter Server actually does have a place to go and configure your DNS servers in the web-based administrative interface, but not ESXi. You can configure DNS from the command line using SSH, and I'll show you how to access the command line for an ESXi host in just a moment. So if I wanted to reconfigure DNS on an ESXi host today, I would go to the Direct Console User Interface. In my case, we'll access that with the server IPMI interface, the remote KVM console that my server happens to have. Not every server will have this, of course. So you could simply go to the physical console for the server. You could log in by pushing F2, use the root username and password, and then, of course, just like we did earlier, go into networking, go into DNS configuration, and it's here that you can set the DNS servers, primary and secondary, as well as the host name for this host.